We've all been victims of it. The endless information surrounding food, the bland and boring meal prep options, the health fanatic movements, and the promise that if you meal prep, your life will be wonderful. And while there might be some truth in how great meal prepping is, of course I'm very biased when I say this, I'm also going to show you the foods I meal prep in a typical week and talk about some of the things I would and absolutely would not recommend. I know you're dying to hear about my cooking, but before I get into the meals I make, I want to take a second to say welcome to my channel, J Drews. I'll talk about all things health, wellness, career, and finances. And if you find any of those topics interesting, I would love it if you could subscribe and give a huge thumbs up to this video. For context, I cook enough for 2 adults for 5 days a week, which is 20 meals in total. As if that wasn't enough cooking, I like to make vegetables and potatoes to eat in the mornings throughout the week. So these are my main meal prep tips, which I have learned through many weeks of trial and error. Things I'd recommend: write out your list to avoid overspending. Have the same starches or proteins in all of your meals. Use your oven to roast as much as possible. Use your kitchen appliances, by this I mean rice cooker, air fryer, and toaster, as much as possible. And make your meals interesting with sauces and spices. Things I would not recommend: not giving yourself enough time, trying new and complicated recipes, understanding the amount of food to buy, and not having enough containers. Before any meal prep, I do a huge shopping trip that costs around $200. With this, I have my full list of the ingredients I need, and then I designate an entire evening to cooking. If you can't do it in one evening, I'd recommend splitting it into 2 days. 1 day for cutting and cooking vegetables, and the next day for cooking your starches and your protein. I usually opt for dishes that I can put in the oven and check on later, and the estimate for how long the whole process takes is around 5 hours. You won't be cooking that entire period, but you'll have to check on your dishes in the oven and switch out trays. Let's talk about vegetables. To make enough for 20 meals, I need to roast about 4 trays of veggies. To make the meals more interesting, I like to use a combination of veggies. I put these in the oven first, and every 20 to 30 minutes I switch out the trays, mix up the vegetables. Cooking them is easy, it's the cutting the vegetables that takes the longest. Always start your meal prep with that. And if I'm making chickpeas or beans, I'll either roast those in the oven or use the air fryer. Starches. If you are going to meal prep many meals a week, I'd highly recommend a rice cooker. This saves me a lot of time. The other starch I like is potatoes. We go through about a bag of potatoes every week, and I like to prep this at the same time as the vegetables and just continuously use that air fryer to cook the potatoes while the vegetables roast in the oven. Proteins. I leave the protein for last. The chicken gets cooked in a casserole dish, which is a great way to put it in the oven without it drying out and without having to constantly check on it. I'll add spices, fresh lemon, and rosemary to give it more flavor, and I let it cook on each side for about 45 minutes. If I want it to be crispy afterwards, I'll put it in the air fryer. For salmon, it's a nice protein to have. It's more expensive, but it cooks a lot faster than chicken, and I'll roast it in the oven with lemon, olive oil, and spices to give it more flavor. After seeing all of this food that I cooked, you're probably wondering how I put this together to make meals. Meal number 1 was Caribbean-style chicken and rice. Here I used the chicken and I made plantain chips. There was rice and a carrot, onion, spinach, and pepper mixture as the vegetable. Meal number 2 was salmon, rice, and vegetables. The salmon roasted with lemon had a really nice flavor, and it paired well with the rice and vegetables. I'd definitely try this one again. Meal number 3 was roasted chicken with potatoes and mixed vegetables. This is a classic, you really can't go wrong. I would just recommend adding a sauce to give it a little bit more flavor. After seeing all of this, you are probably wondering, is this really worth it? So I'm gonna break this down. First is time. It's a big time commitment, but if you compare cooking for 5 days in 5 hours with the average amount of time someone spends cooking in the day, which is 60 minutes, it shows it doesn't necessarily save you time, but it does free up your weekdays, which is where I personally need extra time to be able to do more things after work, like create YouTube videos. Money. The cost of $200 a week seems really high for groceries, until you compare that with the amount I spent on other months. And with that, it's important to note that I'm now cooking for 2 people for a full week instead of 1. And with those extra meals, there has still been an 11% decrease on my monthly grocery spending. And if you're curious about if meal prepping actually helps you stop eating out, I did the math for that too. And in my statements, there has been a 42% decrease in money spent eating out when I compare the month before meal prepping and the month after. So I think it's safe to say, meal prep if you'd rather cook a lot at once, if you want to cut down on food spending and you want to be more aware of what you eat. But it's definitely not for everyone. Speaking of eating, I'm going to have one of my meal prep meals now, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.